In this, the third episode of the Halo series, we're going to talk about how suffering from the halo effect is going to affect you neurologically, how it's going to alter the chemistry of your brain, and how the chemistry of your brain and your neurology can eventually become so wired in that falling in love or developing infatuations becomes an unbreakable habit. When you set up yourself for failure by becoming infatuated with objects or women or people who are impossible to attain, what you're doing is fabricating a false narrative and a false series of expectations and rewards. And it may be, like an addict, you become hooked on staying on the machine rather than winning the payout. What I mean by this is that seeking the comfort from unattainable others is going to be a habit which requires you to suffer quite a lot. And in between the suffering, there are going to be small peaks, small victories, which are going to be just strong enough to keep you in the game. Most people consume without subscribing. I do it myself regularly with other channels, so I understand. But if you do get an opportunity to hit the bell, or hit a like, or make a comment, or subscribe, hey, there are 4 choices, 4 ways that you can make this old man happy. The problem you face is that it only takes around 60 days of solid neurological wiring for something to get hardened and encased. You may have noticed that there are certain habits that you fall into and certain routines that replicate themselves. You may fall in love, for want of a better word, or become infatuated with somebody. And it can be a heady feeling, a roller coaster of emotions, and it reaches a peak and then it wanes. And just like anybody who's addicted to any substance, you're going to need to replace that. You're going to need to find your next fix. So what's happening is that your brain is now wired into a chemical dependency, and it's wired into a situation where you get to expect the highs and the lows, and you become accustomed to them, and you become good at negotiating them. But the problem you have is that you are swimming in a world of fantasy and dopamine stimulated miasma, a haze, a dream state. It can be likened to a form of insanity, if you like, or it can be likened to a form of addictiveness. What's going to happen is that as you encounter these situations and you wire yourself into them and you invest into them, each time you do, you're going to compound the chemical surge and the neurological transmitters in your brain to want to do the same thing the next time. Now, the system is very effective if you are out in the wild and seeking berries, prey, carrion, the next meal, or indeed even a mate. However, in a world in which we are overserved by beautiful people, wonderful food, alcohol, various drugs, the evolutionary mechanisms which enabled us to survive are now a little bit of a liability, because it means that we can binge on everything and binge on everything we do. So when we're not binging on Netflix or binging on alcohol or binging on lottery tickets or the expectation of some political triumph or loss, we're binging on romance and we're binging on infatuations. And our brains are wired in such a way that they accept this without question. What is the answer? Well, I'd suggest that the answer is to replace one fix with another. And by that, if we have to accept that our brain needs a constant surge of expectation and reward, surely it is more healthy to provide ourselves with healthy outlets for our needs. Find a purpose. Find some system or somebody that you can serve. Find a guide. Find a way to extend the hand of friendship or kindness to people with no expectation of any kind of reward. Find a way to go to bed at night feeling that you have served the day well. And if you haven't served the day well, find a way to make amends the next day. And instead of indulging the desire to fall into infatuations and seek the woman in the red dress or the next shiny object, wire in a better sense of purpose and wire in a need for something a little bit more healthy than simply chasing people who find you repellent. And here's the rub. When you do that, something strange is going to happen to you. You are going to become the form of attractive that the kind of people you once chased will gravitate to. Nobody gravitates to a loser. Nobody gravitates to the thirsty, the hungry, the eager to please. But a lot of people, if not the whole world, gravitates to people who are set in their purpose, who have a method and a means and a desire to succeed, regardless of what anybody else thinks. So what I'm suggesting to you is make the constant drive for halos and pretty and infatuations, make those things redundant. Replace them with a drive for purpose, for meaning, and for outcomes. I hope this has been useful to you. I've enjoyed talking about this, and I'd like to leave you with my final thought, which of course is, whatever it is you dare to do or dream, begin it now. Peace out, my friends. I'll catch you next time.